Hello there and welcome to Shuttlebay 4. This time, we've watched the TOS episode, The Doomsday Machine, and things get quite heated over the word engineer or mechanic.
I like your t-shirt, your Bob Ross one.
Yeah, I'm part of the Bob Ross Appreciation Society, or BRAS, as we like to be known.
Before we start, I don't know if anybody's seen, but our videos on YouTube, one of them, the Shades of Grey one, somebody made a comment on there, actually, that I thought was really good. Troy Pacelli. He pointed out that with Shades of Grey, obviously this was a season 2 episode, but like he said, if this had been, say, like a season 6 or 7 episode, where you'd had more history to delve into for clips, it actually could have been a good episode, especially when you consider, you know, Riker's previous posts and things like that. He could have delved more into Riker's history. Yeah. So I just thought it was an interesting point.
I said similar because other series have done the same thing, but they had all that backstory to call upon, you know what I mean? And they were kind of forced because of budget constraints to do it straight away.
Yeah, it was a bit ambitious, really. Well, ambitious probably isn't the right word, but it's probably the opposite of ambitious. But, you know, it's not really the right time to do a clip show when you're only really just starting to get going. So what did we watch this week? We watched Doomsday Machine.
The Doomsday Machine.
The Doomsday Machine. So the first comment I've got is, how short is that dress? I can't remember the name of the character, but you know, the one that kind of replaces Uhura in this episode, and I think she's in a couple of episodes.
What I noticed about that bit was making me laugh. It was there's an engineer on his hands and knees between her legs nearly all the way through that episode. Every time he kept going over there, there was like this one guy in red on his hands and knees on the floor.
Lieutenant Palmer. It was Lieutenant Palmer.
That's it, Harry Palmer. But she, her dress was, when she sat down, it basically went right up her ass.
Well, it was probably Uhura's dress, but she was a lot taller.
I love the way that Kirk hits the red alert button. He just like walks up, he just like mashes it with his palm, all cocky and casual.
Red alert, red alert.
Why were the bouncers on the door? Throughout the entire... Did you notice them throughout the entire episode?
One of my points is I've never seen so many people on the bridge all the time, absolutely all the time throughout the episode. It was quite strange.
When he pressed red alert, all they did was move forward.
Red alert, man your battle stations.
One step forward. Red alert. Oh, hello.
Do you know what though? They stepped forward and then they got in other people's way because of it. We're in a red alert situation and you got some dickhead just stands in your way while you're trying to rush about doing stuff.
But it must be the most boring job on the Enterprise, just standing there next to a door. Two of them.
Yeah.
For hours and hours on end. One thing I did notice about the filming of this, though, it's really bizarre because every so often, whenever it happens both with Decker and when Kirk's talking to Palmer, it felt as though those scenes were filmed maybe days apart from each other. It didn't feel like there was any interaction. It's a bit jarring.
Jim Kirk. What happened to your ship, Matt?
That thing.
What thing? What was it?
Decker, I thought is really convincing in this episode. It really does come across as someone who's consumed by grief. At some point, it looks as though he's overdoing it a bit. But
I put that down to it being the 60s, and they kind of asked you to do that, didn't they? They always overact a bit, but
afterwards, I did read that the actor, and I can't remember his name because I'm crap with names.
William Wyndham.
There you go. Wyndham did it deliberately. He said that he thought it was quite hokey crap.
Yeah, I read the same thing. Yeah,
and he deliberately overacted it. But he said afterwards.
He said actually he played it like it was a cartoon because he really didn't understand it, and it sounded really stupid to him. So he just played it like it was a cartoon.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes that comes across. What are you saying, Gibbo?
He also needed to have a bath. It looked like
but he was stuck on that ship for days and days, and I understand that.
But yeah, so I like Decker. Obviously, I watched this on Netflix. I don't know where everybody else watched it, so I did, with the updated effects.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do like the updated effects on TOS because a lot of time when effects are updated, it's just it doesn't really work. Now, the updated effects aren't brilliant. They are a good few years old now. The CGI isn't brilliant, but it doesn't have to be. And I thought that the Doomsday Machine itself looks way better now than it did before.
Well, that was I've written down because I've made a similar point. It was like I'm not always fussed on the new updated effects. I sometimes like to go back and watch episodes in the old effects, but certain episodes, especially this one, really get a lot of they're better for it because the Doomsday Machine was shit in the original one.
I mean, in the original. Well, the original wasn't even a polystyrene turd. It was a windsock dipped in cement and then left to dry. That's what it was. So the CGI one looks great because it glows. It looks genuinely menacing. When Kirk is on the Constellation and the Enterprise is attacked, because Kirk's away from the Enterprise.
Correct, Enterprise, come in. Enterprise, come in. Mr. Spock, come in.
He's genuinely flustered, and I don't think I've ever seen him like that before. He's like, his ship is being attacked, his crew's been attacked, he's powerless, and it was good to see. It just added another dimension to Kirk, the fact that you can see him panicking and flustered because he's so distant from him and he feels like he can't help. There's real tension in this episode as well. You get disagreements on the bridge between McCoy and Spock. You then get, obviously, Decker and Spock disagreeing, and then you get Spock and McCoy kind of almost forming an allegiance. Throughout this episode, you've got loads of just tensions constantly mounting. I do wish, though, that they'd focus the camera properly on Sulu. Every time they showed Sulu, it was blurry. I was like, what are you doing? That really annoyed me, that. And also, why is Sulu so sweaty? Every time he saw me, I had like beads of sweat all over his face, and nobody else did.
Tension.
Tension, yes, that added to the tension.
Maybe he's
the
just
music,
a sweaty man compared to everyone else. He's under them lights all day.
Oh my.
Oh my. The music in this episode I thought was amazing. It sounds different to everything else. Now, I did Google it afterwards, and I found that the music was composed especially for this episode. So unlike most episodes where they're just using kind of like the stock music they've got, it was composed especially. It was used for other episodes afterwards as well. But that's one of the reasons why it sounds so amazing. It sounds like a film score, and this episode does stand apart from a lot of episodes. And I think the music has got a lot to do with that. Sol Kaplan was the musical composer. And that's really all I've got for this episode. I deliberately didn't make many notes. That constant ramping up of tension works really well. It just feels like a really well-crafted episode. And even though I've seen it before, you still buy into the tension because it's not just done by the music. It's not just done by the actors. It's everything. You got this constant ramping up, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen next? I did have some facts as well, but I've lost them on my notes. I've done something to my notes and deleted them. But they were interesting facts. But Brush might have them. I don't know.
The only thing I wanted to say about this episode is all the updated effects they've done for the TOS, this was the best one. When you watch the original, there is hardly any kind of battle scenes where you see the ship going up against the Doomsday.
It's just
machine.
this cone, isn't it, flying through space with an orange front, and that's it.
Yeah, you just kind of see Decker's face, you hear some sound effects going off, but you don't really see anything. And this was the first time you actually saw everything going on. And they did a sterling job. They didn't overdo it with the effects. They tried to keep it as much in time with the rest of the episode. And it was just very well done.
I also love the damaged Constitution.
Yeah,
that looked really good.
When it was zooming in, it was floating through space.
Yeah. On the side view where you can see all the damage outside. That was really good.
Yeah, it did. It absolutely. The whole episode, sterling job on the effects.
Yeah, I agree. Good. For this one specifically, right, I'll go next. I kind of went from the beginning. I was watching the episode and I did that thing of, okay, I'll start making notes as I go. So my first thing was how many officers were on the bridge. And it was the same throughout the whole episode. I think you've pointed out, especially the two opposite, by the turbo lift. It's like there was no reason for them to be there, except much later on in the episode. And it was kind of like, oh, we'll need them later. We'll just put them on there from the start. Who cares, kind of thing. It was weird. And also, all the other people on the bridge, there was lots and lots of different people on the bridge all the way through the episode, especially when you think Picard is off the bridge, you know what I mean? Picard, what am I talking about? Kirk is off the bridge. D, you were nodding away.
Anyway. We knew what you meant.
Kirk in his tunic was the thing, you know what I mean? You don't see him in
Oh,
his
yeah,
tunic
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's
so
true, yeah.
Also, that was the first time you see him in second season, so it was slightly different from what you see in the first season, and I thought it looked actually good.
Is it missing the gold on this one? It had it in the
No,
first
it's
season.
got the gold.
It's got the gold, okay.
And it didn't
But
in the
hasn't got
first.
It hasn't got the insignia up here, has it? It's got the original one's got something up here on the shoulders, I think, and it looked crap.
I don't know actually. I just know because I looked into this one. It's got the gold, but later on in the second season, it gets a bit of black as well trim on it.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have in this particular one. And I thought it looked good. And I wanted to open more of a conversation rather than just going through now. It's like, what are your preferences? Like, do you prefer Kirk in his just yellow, or do you like him in his green? Because when I originally watched it, it always jarred me. I didn't like the green at all, but now rewatching it, I kind of appreciate the green more than I did.
I think I prefer him in the yellow, like Gibbo's wearing there. But I do like the green when you see it, but I think it's because it's one of those things you save it for birthdays and anniversaries, right?
I guess, but he never uses it for special occasions. It is just a random episode, so it is interesting why he does that.
I like the green. I like Anton wears it as well. Obviously,
I hate that one. That's awful.
I like that. Yeah. And Archer wore it as well in that 2-part episode.
Yes,
great.
God. It did, yes.
Yes. Stop talking.
Enterprise in there.
Well done.
I'm a yellow fan. First one I ever saw was this episode.
Was it?
Really?
That's why I picked it. It was the first ever Star Trek episode.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is what basically got me into it because.
Well, it's quite a good episode as well to have watched. Do you know what I mean? It could have been Spock's brain.
Or it could have been the space hippies, and I would have gone, F that. I'm going to get back to Scott Rogers.
I'm standing here wondering. What? A man.
The Way to Eden.
So this is what got you into it then, D?
Yeah.
I mean, Jess.
Yeah. Yes, it got me in.
It's not like that.
All right, you got me. No, yeah. It was the first. I saw it on BBC Two, and it was the original. So, like you said, it was just a lot of people throwing themselves around on the bridge. You didn't see any of the space battles.
Yeah.
But as a kid, to see a giant machine like that could eat planets, sparked my imagination because I never saw anything like that.
Yeah.
As a kid, Fireball XL5 and fucking Thunderbirds, that's all I got.
I wish I was a spaceman.
But yeah.
What about you? What about you, Steve? Do you like the green or the yellow more?
I like the green, but my OCD says yellow because it's consistent.
I liked that bit about Kirk's tunic. It carried me off. So Decker. I'm going to go into my own mind. People do realise Commodore Decker is Captain Decker's dad, yeah?
Yeah.
So Captain Decker
I was waiting.
You haven't got an oh my, I haven't got. Shut your face. No, you have come up with a couple I haven't had, Penfold, in the past. So I do. I'm sorry about that. You notice the Enterprise of the Constellation was like just a change up of 1701. And again, he was like, well, you've not got the budget to do that, but because they used a model of the original Enterprise to do it, and so they could batter one of them up, you know what I mean? They just switched the numbers round, because that was a bit obvious. It was like, come on, just change the fucking numbers, people. When they beamed away on the away team straight away, you had, again, it was like a lot of people on an away team to go to the ship. No one security officer. I thought that was very strange. Even though it was an engineer, I know they were trying to fix the ship as well, but it was still like you take a fucking red shirt everywhere with you on TOS. You know what I mean?
To be fair, Brush, they were waiting on the Enterprise bridge, so they were busy at the time.
Do you know the build up to it when you were finding out about what this had done? It felt like a Borg attack, didn't it? To you?
Yeah.
Didn't anybody? It did feel like,
big,
wow, this is a Borg attack. You know, until then there was an explanation of it's eating the rock to generate and stuff like that. But it veered away. But then also later on in the episode, it went back to, this totally relates to what we know as a Borg attack when they didn't in TNG when they didn't know what had attacked that particular sector. So I thought that was quite interesting. They beam Decker aboard. Actually, Kirk sends McCoy and Decker back to the ship, doesn't he? Specifically because Decker is like, you need to take him to sickbay, Doctor. And the first thing he does is take him to the bridge And then that's where I feel this little bit, I didn't like this part of the episode because it was like, no, come on, there is an absolute procedure here and he needs to be taken to sickbay and have a medical. And then he goes on the bridge and has that massive argument, which you've mentioned. And now, while I did really love all the acting within it, I just felt like the Doctor tried to put Spock in a position to do the Doctor's job for him. And I didn't like that part of the writing. I thought the Doctor showed how weak of a character than he was, actually, because the Doctor always loves, in every other series I've ever seen, to rub in every commander's face, I've got the authority to take you off this command to do what I want because of medical, whatever I feel. And he didn't choose to go and do one test on him. And he was like, come on, that is so out of procedure. So that bit I felt fell apart.
Doctor, you are out of line. So are you.
Whereas within all of that, I loved Spock's, like he made some really pointed initial comments to him to try and force him out of the chair by understanding I am saying the real honest truth to you right now. And then yielded because it was, that's the law. This is the law. He is Commodore. He's got this right because you, Doctor, who were throwing it in my face, won't take him to sickbay and demand he does a medical test. So that particular part I got frustrated with because Dr. McCoy didn't show, it was, I know it's the right thing, but he was like, Dr. McCoy, you are the one in authority here. You should have taken him to sickbay originally, not go, oh, it's a red alert. Let's go straight to the bridge.
Mr. Spock, that will be all. You have been relieved of command. Don't force me to relieve you of duty as well.
It did feel like there was enough evidence for McCoy to relieve him
Well,
of
just
duty.
because I think Kirk had told him to take this man to sickbay.
Yeah.
And he was like, already you're under order. And yet you didn't do that straight away. And then even on the bridge, it should have been Dr. McCoy helping Spock in that situation. Because Spock was doing the best he could within the letter of the law. And Dr. McCoy is the one that could have gone in and gone, look, this now is a medical thing. I mean, you have to come to sickbay with me to do this one test. If you pass it, you come back to the bridge. And when you don't, we don't have to go through this situation.
When he was on the Constellation class, though, the Doctor says he's in shock.
Well, you could see it because this man was crazy.
Instantly, so he shouldn't have been on the bridge in the first place.
Yeah,
he's in a state of shock.
You're right.
I agree.
So that bit, that's the one part. Because otherwise, the episode is amazing. Overall, it really was good. And you've mentioned it built the tension really well. It was a very solidly acted episode by everybody, I thought. And so it was just that one part. It was like, come on, that shouldn't have happened. And then when he escaped as well, he was like, I did point, and again, I know I'm nitpicking, but it was like Spock should have reported to Medbay. He's on his way to you. I want you to do this test, please. And then he gets away in the ship and is like, nobody's looking for him. They just, don't know what's going on.
I felt like that security officer because he only threw about 3.5 punches and he was sweating like a tramp.
Again, he's just one of them sweaty actors under all them lights, man. I just thought Spock's actual command authority throughout the episode was amazing. I thought Spock acted this super well without being given much to do. And I thought Spock stood out particularly in this episode for me. The stunt double, so he was, did anybody notice how
I did.
the stunt double
was?
Which
so
one? Normally I
William
spot
Wyndham,
these, I didn't.
the Commodore.
Yeah.
When he's fighting, like he's in the corridor. Oh my God!
It was really bad.
The worst stunt double I've ever seen in my life,
really
I think. So yeah, you should look that up.
In what way did it not look like him?
Would look like him. He was about 20 years younger, slim. He had like this really gaunt face. No, he looked nothing like him. He was crazy how bad that was.
Really
I can't believe you didn't notice it. Right at the end now, Kirk's putting himself in the position. He's right in the jaws of this beast. Transport me! And I'm like, don't tell me there's not a fucking little bit of radiation coming off that thing. Because anytime there's radiation, you cannot use the transporter, except this one time. It must be the first time ever that radiation doesn't stop you using a transporter or whatever else you actually need at the time.
Bionic radiation.
I've written it really down low, don't know why, but you notice in obviously other episodes, but every ship has its own insignia, and I really don't like that. It's quite jarring to me, but also I can understand this. The new series, it's the first series, so like and they kind of thought this might be quite cool, but it really doesn't work now looking back on it because we all know everybody relates Star Trek to that particular symbol. You know what I mean? And so it's really jarring to see other ships having all these different insignias, and I didn't like that one he was wearing at all.
I didn't. No.
I got all my's. I know I'm talking and I all the time. I don't care. William Wyndon was stupid enough not to realise this was like about Moby Dick. You know, this is a basic Moby Dick allegory. So he said it was years and years later that he came to it.
If Moby Dick is such a great novel, why do people have to be forced to read it?
And realised his mistake because he did think it was silly and acted it as a cartoon, and yet felt like as an actor he had some gravitas to have gone off and didn't even know it. So he felt himself a bit silly, not the episode. The three crew that beam over when they go on to the constellation, they
no
all
tricorder and no phaser.
What?
No tricorder or phaser.
That's Dr. McCoy and Captain Kirk you're talking about. And see, now I know everything. I'm talking about the three crew when they beamed over with them. They were just all named after assistant directors, so it's really nice that they kind of give assistant directors a character. I would love that, if I worked in that kind of industry. This is the first episode we see a new design of the Enterprise bridge. Sorry, not bridge. The engineering set. Yeah, because there's loads of different stuff. There's ladder to an upstairs balcony, which never used to be there. It was just view screens, and certain consoles are moved about. Also, the entrance to it isn't now off a main corridor anymore. It's got this little corridor that you walk through to go into engineering, which is correct thing to have, submarine kind of stuff. He was nominated for a Hugo Award, which is quite cool, for Best Dramatic Presentation. Obviously never won. And then, although popular, well, who cares?
Hello, this is a really quick interruption just to say, if you do want to know who won the 1968 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation, although it wasn't the Doomsday Machine, it was a Star Trek episode. It was The City on the Edge of Forever. In fact, there were 5 nominees that year. The others were Star Trek The Trouble with Tribbles, Star Trek Mirror Mirror, and Star Trek Amok Time. All 5 nominations were Star Trek episodes. Goodbye.
And although this is a really popular with critics and fans, DC Fontana, who is I love DC Fontana, she's come out and said this is one of her really least favourite episodes ever, which is quite interesting. And that's my oh my's. Oh my!
Oh my!
Oh my!
I've got a mini oh my. It's not really. It's not a big one.
Mini oh my!
I was reading that Wyndham hated the entire experience, and one of the main reasons he hated it was because he said that Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner just didn't get on, and apparently the atmosphere was just terrible.
This is season 2, early in season 2, and they weren't getting on right now. And do you know what? It's mentioned quite a lot. I don't know if other people have read it, but you notice it within the dynamic of them on screen. Season 1, the dynamic is really good, actually, especially towards the end. And the three of them have this dynamic that really made us all love Star Trek, I guess. And yet that diminishes now throughout season 2 and season 3. They become separate actors doing their own thing. And yes, a lot of people have written that, and they've mentioned in the cast as well, because we didn't get on, it wasn't the same friendship you had. So we were doing our job, you know what I mean? But it wasn't then the camaraderie you get by doing your job together. Oh my!
Oh my!
Oh my!
I did read quite a bit about this the other night because I just couldn't sleep, and I remember thinking, that's an interesting fact, and I made a note of it, but I've lost all my notes, so I can't remember what they are now. But I'm sure I remember reading that James Doohan really likes this episode.
You're right. From the aspect of the science behind it.
Yeah, and the engineering part, because it is quite engineering heavy. There's a lot of engineering speak in it, and I do like that. And if John Joe was on there, I think he'd appreciate that as well. If he likes all that.
I read that as well. Yeah, I didn't write it down. Sorry. We have different interpretations of oh my. Mine's all cock and balls. Oh, sorry. What did I say?
So I had 2 oh my's. The first one is, did you know that this Decker is related to William Decker from the motion picture?
From the motion picture?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my.
Wow. And my second oh my, which is, James Doohan, this is one of his favourite episodes he ever did.
Wow. Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Oh my.
I'm glad I blew your mind away. But other than that, the episode is, for me, it's one of my favourite original series episodes. It is much better in the upscaled version. I love everything about this episode. It's full of action, tension, and I didn't know that about him acting it as a cartoon, but you can see that now. Now I know that you can really see it.
Yeah, this is what he has said, and I don't know if he was exaggerating with the cartoon, because that's quite extreme to think he was acting like he was in a cartoon, because that's just a voice actor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he didn't know what he was involved in and didn't recognize what they were trying to bring from the story. There was this Moby Dick story they're trying to bring through it, and he didn't recognize that at all as an actor. So.
But it did look a bit overdone, didn't it, at times? Sometimes it did look like it's really going,
His acting, absolutely. But I do, right, you can't say a bad word about William Wyndham, and I'll come on to that. But I do think it's got harking back to that time, you know what I mean? I didn't write this down, but one of the first scenes he has with Kirk, so he just finds him in the chair, and then William Wyndham's got these like awful faces going on. But did you see Kirk have to overact because he was like, "Oh, I'm not letting him have this," but also he didn't do that for the rest of the episode, maybe because William Wyndham wasn't on the ship. That's right. So, but that would have been awful if they'd had both of them on screen together, because in that one scene, I felt Kirk was like, "Come on, will you?" You're really trying to overact him here. Whereas he's the crazy, he's on a chair crazy, just let him be crazy. It's okay.
I'm not knocking his acting, although I think there were little bits where, like, well, it looks like he's overdoing it. I felt completely convinced by him. And you can forgive the overacting bit, because the truth is he's gone through something incredibly traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And so you can, it does explain itself away. It's just, if you walk into the room during those particular bits, if you're not watching the rest of the episode, you might be like, oh, bloody hell, who's this guy? Thinks he's in a cartoon.
It's the bit when he's going into the Doomsday Machine. That's the bit I really cringe at. Even now, I look at it and go, oh.
A little bit of it, like towards the end. Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit too much for me.
But he's looking into hell.
Same as you, Bush. I don't like the other emblems. I hated that. Even as a kid, I remember seeing the different types of insignias. I hated that. I always didn't get it.
It was confusing because they never properly went out their way to explain it, you know?
Yeah.
And if they did, maybe we might have accepted it. But to us, this was the emblem. It's like, what the f*** are you wearing? Are you a Nazi? I don't know.
Same what you guys have said, really. It's just a really good, solid episode. And I can watch it over and again. It's one of those episodes where I can get back to.
It's a great episode of TOS, to be fair. I mean, it's one that you would definitely recommend. If somebody said, what episode of TOS should I watch?
This or Mock Times are the top ones. And it's the same season as well. Yeah. Season 2 is one of the strongest. I wish they did, somewhere in Star Trek, would revisit Doomsday. We never got another episode ever again, unless I missed something. It would have been nice to see who created it, where it come from.
Where did you come from? Where did you go? That's a good point, actually. Because it's still floating around in space somewhere, right?
Do you know what, though? Do you know what? They interestingly, is they pick up on these tiny little things.
Lower Decks, you're going to say.
Discovery was based off a war that we never saw. It was just briefly mentioned on a TOS episode. You know what I mean? It wasn't even on screen, and they made a whole series out of it. So you never know. Write it down somewhere, Penfold, and send it to a producer.
No, I want the Romulan War with the Enterprise NX first.
Oh, f*** off. We're not having that.
It could appear in Strange New Worlds. You know what I mean? That would be really good if it was like.
I will admit, I love the Romulans, and I would love to see much more Romulans and the history, because all it is ever. But this is why the Romulans are so powerful for me in all the series, is because you don't really know. And that's part of the really important point of the Romulans. If you knew, they'd probably lose a lot of what we feel about them, because explaining it depends how they do it, and none of us like everything, blah, blah. And then it just takes away all of this.
Same with
we
the
have
Borg.
no knowledge. Yeah.
That's why the Borg kind of lost it a little bit.
Yeah. But I wasn't talking about the Romulans. I was talking about the actual Doomsday Machine. I can see it would be great if in Strange New Worlds they do what they did in Discovery, where they have previously in Star Trek, and show the Doomsday Machine, and it's come back, and it's. Oh no, they can't, because this is set before TOS, so they can't do that.
No,
I'll ignore that.
Yeah.
Lower Decks, then.
You can also cut it if you want.
Yeah, I might edit that bit. But Lower Decks could be. In fact, wait, I'll start again. I'll tell you what, it'd be great if they bring back the Doomsday Machine in an episode of Lower Decks.
That'd be really good. That's a really good idea.
What you just mentioned about it floating in space, I've just read this book, and it's all about where the Doomsday Machine is.
No
and Picard goes and steals it.
Right, put that book. What is it called?
Before Dishonor, Star Trek Next Generation.
That's interesting.
And it's basically about a Borg ship goes rogue, and it eats planets, and it gets bigger. So they nick the Doomsday Machine to kill the Borg. It is a good book. I enjoyed the read.
Oh, and I'm glad it's such a big thing. You know what I mean? It's I mean, literally is a big thing, but it's such a powerful thing.
Oh
It's
my!
almost, oh my! That's what she said. But it feels as though it's almost remiss to not mention it again. You know what I mean? Especially when it's just like floating around. It's a bit, you know.
No, it's not floating around. It's been tractor beamed and it's stationed at a museum.
I'm buying it. I'm buying it.
Are you buying it now?
I'm going to try to. Yeah.
Steve, did you watch the episode?
Yeah, I did. But to be honest, you guys have covered most of it.
Steve, did you enjoy the episode?
It was good. It was an all right episode. Again, like everybody said, I still think that he should have had a psych evaluation. But I did think that at the point that he was firing like crazy at it, and he'd been advised that it wouldn't do any damage because of the outer shell. In my mind, that should have been the moment that they just grabbed him and said, "You're fucking nuts," and pulled him out of the chair, rather than going through it all and wasting all that energy and just seeing what happens, given the fact that all the science says you're wasting your time, you dickhead. Because he clearly did look a little bit crazy in going fire, fire, fire all the bloody time.
Fire! I thought the same. I think the first time I watched this episode, I was probably expecting them to wrestle him out of that chair. And Spock take over, because Spock, like Brush said, really does take the lead on the bridge.
What he did, though, Spock, he followed everything totally by the rules. And then when he actually challenged him originally on the bridge, when he took it too far and Spock challenged him and said, well, if this course carries on, this is what... He stopped, and he did actually stop. So I believe Spock actually acted perfectly throughout the whole episode.
I did feel for Spock in some respects that he was caught between a rock and a hard place, because his captain's saying, take command. And then obviously there's a superior officer on the bridge who equally within his rights to take command. Yeah. So I thought that was a little bit of almost a moral dilemma for him as to which he would do, and would he allow his friendship with Kirk to influence it.
And that's where for Spock it always came down to, this is the letter of the law, you know.
Yeah, I'm sort of glad he flew that shuttlecraft in there, because it was like, mate, you're a fucking liability.
I forgot to mention that part, the ending wasn't supposed to be like that. It was kind of supposed to be, he realized what he had done wrong and said sorry for it, and was then decommissioned as well because of it. And then they thought, actually, this really follows much better through if we allow him to sacrifice himself, because he knows he done wrong, and what he's trying to do is, in his own mind anyway, you know, die with his crew and do something that might help, possibly.
But the twist that I liked about that was the fact that him doing that and sacrificing himself actually gave them the information they needed to be able to beat it in the end. If they'd done it the original way, I don't know how they would have then
destroyed it. Yeah. And also it's perfect Star Trek as well. That fits in with Star Trek so well, I feel.
Overall, good episode. No real complaints about it.
Wow. Is there another one in a row?
Was there time travel? No. Was it Enterprise or Discovery? No. Then what's not to like?
So can I put up the I enjoyed it Steve thing now?
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it.
I'm sure Patches has got something to say.
Patches.
I'll hit you with it. I did like the episode. I do love this episode. It's a smooth Star Trek episode. It's not too far out there. It doesn't lose track of the pace or where it's trying to go. It's quite a simple thing. You know, there's a Doomsday Machine. We have to do the Doomsday Machine. We have to do it in. Some of the acting was pretty good, actually. I thought when Spock owned Decker, and he said, no, you're going with the Doctor. You're not staying here. You're going with the Doctor.
Oh,
that's
Kirk,
what you're going to do.
Kirk,
auxiliary control.
Yes.
Yeah. He said, like, you're going with the Doctor. Doctor, off you go. I'll stay here. I'll get this like ready to move. We'll tow this ship. It's a busted Hulk. It's done. He did it.
Yeah.
When he did that to Spock, like when Decker did that to Spock, Spock just kind of poker faced him.
I made a mistake then.
And he said, I'm you know, I don't like this. I don't like that. I might take command. Spock just looked at him, just deadpan. And I was like, whoa, that's a look.
I am assuming command of the Enterprise.
You have the right to do so, but I would advise against it.
But it didn't really make any difference. He took command anyway. He did give the Doctor an out as well. Or give the Doctor a way in fact.
And he said, oh my God, I hated
under
McCoy
Section
last
C,
season.
if he's not mentally capable.
Yeah.
And I thought, do you know what? I was watching it again. I thought,
and then the Doctor shouted at Spock, though.
Had...
He really had to go with Spock then about, oh, you're such a weird. And it's like, no, you fool. You had the choice to do that.
That
I
was
didn't.
Definitely
you know?
that was Bones's point to say, look, you can't take command until you've had a medical. You can't do that. We found you adrift, you know, and it's more than just. I mean, it was represented in the episode with a 5 o'clock shadow, like an unkempt captain. Do you know what I mean? He's in a state, and it was scruffy hair and a 5 o'clock shadow. But that was just letting you know that this guy's not in a good place.
Yeah, he's unhinged, isn't it?
Yeah. I thought Bones had good grounds, and Spock kind of diffused it and said, "On what grounds are you going to do this?" And he said, "Well, I'll go and get the grounds right now. I'll certify, but I'm telling you straight, I'm the medical officer, and I'm telling you, you ain't taking command of any. I wouldn't put you in charge of a coffee machine until you've had a physical." The music in this episode sometimes it was a bit much, and it did fade to black at one point, and that like the orchestral tension that just carried right on, and actually kind of made me wince a little bit. Some of the music was a bit off here. It was a bit too much.
That's interesting because Dan has mentioned that he found out this was an original score for this episode, and they reused a lot of it in future episodes. But how he noticed it was different than to what you'd heard before.
Yeah, and
the one scene I
noticed
was good, music,
but
the one scene I noticed music. You know when Decker went into the worm, he took his shuttle into the worm. It cut to black, and it was a really dramatic scene. And then they opened up because it was like a shot of the Enterprise coming forward. They just opened up to that jingly music, and I was almost like, "Whoa, is that the episode done? That's the end. That's the music you play when the episode is done, and you just showing the last shot of the Enterprise. And yet, this man's just died. You must complete this episode." And then they did carry forward to do it. So I thought that one particular part of the music was really jarring because it gave you the wrong interpretation of where it was going.
Yeah. He's gone.
That shot, by the way, where you see, I can't remember which ship it is now, but you see the ship basically heading towards the orange light. I thought that looked, it was a really good shot.
The new effects made this episode because
the new effects
had nothing in the original episode. I've got it on DVD, and you get nothing in regards to that particular entity being that dramatically, like it can kill planets.
And I say the new one. I watched the one like the remastered. The shots of the outside of the ship, the bit where the constellation just fades away and it's dropped from the tractor beam, and it's gorgeous. The planet killer is gorgeous. The inside, the core, some of the phaser shots and all of that lot, brilliant. And in fact, it kind of they're so good, it kind of lets some of it down. I think there's a part where Spock's saying to Sulu, like, more power. And Sulu's like, there's nothing, but there's no sound effect and there's no music. He's just stomping on a button. And you can hear him.
It a lot. It's almost like, what, is that the up button?
But there's no beep. There's no error sound. There's no. It's just.
We can't break loose. We need more power. We haven't got it.
And we need more power. We don't have it. And I was like, weak.
I kind of see, and that's the one thing sometimes why I don't like the new effects being included, because it takes. But I personally will always go, you can't take away from it. It is what it was. We've just got something that looks a little bit better now, so I will never take
gorgeous. Those, especially the external shots, gorgeous. Loved all of that. The sound effects. So the planet killer sound effect. That was straight 60s sci-fi shit. And I did quite like the engines where Scotty got the engines of the Constellation working. It was like woo woo woo, and it was like conking out. It was stalling.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that as well. Yeah.
Without Scotty having to deliver a line, like the engines, it is as it was as it could have been. You know what I mean? Like Kirk can hear this thing struggling, and he's like, right, he's roped together this engine to work that much, but it's really dodgy. Which is why when he said I've got the phaser banks charged, that was like, oh, nice one. And he did say you've earned your pay this week.
Scotty, just earned your pay for the week. Stand by.
Also, yeah, and it was interesting because he keep going. You know, you're doing so well, Scott. You got it more than I thought would be online. Keep going.
Yeah,
what else can we get? Yeah.
I said it at the beginning. It's a smooth episode. You know what I mean? Like Sulu, junior officer, is at the helm. He's firing. It's the sweat's dripping off him. It's dripping off him.
Oh, I already said he's one of those sweaty men who's been under those lights all day, and you just get sweaty people, don't you? I'm one of them.
I like the way that the badge for the Constellation is slightly different to the Enterprise.
We all hate that, Patches. We've all said how much we hate that. Each ship has different insignia.
Each ship has, it's like the colours. Do you know what I mean? It's like the colours of a regiment. It's slightly different. I could see where they were going with that.
Oh, okay. No, what I said was it would have been nice if they'd introduced that to us. They never really explained the different insignias on ships well enough for us to accept it. And for us, the Delta now is just Star Trek through and through, isn't it? So it's kind of jarring to see other symbols on people's shirts.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that I like about the original series was little nuggets like that, little ideas like that. Although they didn't carry forward, it's nice to look back and see it. And the way I kind of explain that is Starfleet's still kind of new.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean? Yeah.
And as the Enterprise is the flagship, and it is the flagship of the fleet, it's always been the flagship of the fleet. It bears the crest of Starfleet, the Delta thing. But everyone else gets something different. Only the Enterprise has the honor of having the Delta. So that's the way I think of that in my head. And I thought it was quite nice to see, actually. There's a couple of holes in the plot, and I did sit there watching it and going, if this anti-proton beam can destroy a planet, how can the Enterprise take so many hits off it and not just fly apart?
Absolutely, yeah.
It can bust a planet, but not a ship. Another thing I liked was Decker's over-the-shoulder slap. Did anyone see that when he's been arrested and he comes out of the turbo lift?
Oh yes, yes, with his two hands though. Yeah,
and that's exactly.
It was like an overhead karate chop with two hands.
He telegraphed this situation like he was building up his wushu. It was a very 1-inch punch type thing. He's like, right, I'm gonna do that. Bang. And then this guy just went, and flew all over the place.
Did you pick anything else up off that particular fight scene?
Well, apart from the fact that it wasn't that, like, the stunt double didn't look.
Yay! How bad was that stunt double? I've commented that is the worst stunt double I've ever seen on screen.
As I was watching, I was like, "Who's that?" Oh yeah, it's Decker, but not. Do you know what I mean? It's like, who's that come onto the ship now? Oh, it's Decker. The final act was excellent. After the death of Decker, and I'm not saying that he ruined the episode up to then. I'm saying that the final act, it had a lot of suspense. Like, now would be a good time, man. Beam me off, and you're like, now. I know for a fact that Kirk's going to survive and Scotty's going to pull it out of the bag. But I love the way Spock's like, Scotty, cut the shit and fix the thing, man. And I'm sat there like, come on. And the more, they call it the more, this thing's getting closer and closer and closer. And they turn up the lights and you can see the yellow-orange flash in Kirk's face. And he's like, and I'm sat there going, I was going to say, there was a shuttlecraft on the arse end of that thing, and we've already seen a shuttlecraft come out the back of the Enterprise. Why didn't he go, like, the transporters are about, this, I'm going for the shuttlecraft, man. And just blast out the back of
you know, I didn't think of that, but you're true. That's true as well. Yeah.
But apart from the obvious plot holes, and to be honest, I don't really notice a lot of these plot holes unless I'm doing this and critiquing the episode. I just take it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm so engrossed in it. There was a great Star Trek moral. And it did go, people used to fuck around with these H-bombs all the time.
Yeah.
And that is the Doomsday Machine. The whole episode is an analogy to where we were in the 60s, which was, in the jaws of doom with a nuclear holocaust. And I love that Star Trek-y kind of moral of the week thing. I love that. I don't know if you've gone into where was Uhura and who was
Yeah,
that?
she didn't appear in this episode. She was replaced by a Lieutenant Palmer, who wore her dress,
Palmer.
and it was a lot shorter on her, so you saw a little bit more.
I like
Lieutenant
that's
Palmer. What you picked up on.
Yeah,
Lieutenant. Patches, you'd have been that guy on your hands and knees in the red overalls between the legs all the way through the episode.
Yeah. Excuse me, darling, I just need to fix this.
Yeah.
What are we doing for dinner? You know what I mean?
This is Lieutenant Palmer replacing Uhura. I like Uhura on the bridge more. I wasn't able to find out why she didn't appear in this episode.
Right.
And I wonder why. It could have been anything. Could have been she was ill. Dan is researching as we speak.
Uhura wasn't in this episode because she had a singing engagement. It happened twice during Star Trek that she didn't make episodes.
Good job, Dan.
Oh my!
Oh my!
Oh,
Yeah,
she was double tasking there.
No, fair play though. Like, interestingly, that because she would have asked permission for that.
Yeah, but she
and
was
the studio allowed her to go do it, and so that's interesting as well.
Yeah,
she was
totally.
She was actively pursuing a singing career. But if you remember, obviously when Star Trek, it wasn't a huge successful show. So they were probably thinking, well, season 2 kind of became the last season before the letter writing campaign. So if they thought the writing's on the wall here,
There's an episode of Murder, She Wrote. Somebody appears and people, come on, type, you bastards, type! Like your fucking life depends on it!
It's obviously William Wyndham. Research department, I think... I mean, I'm not entirely sure.
I missed that.
What?
Brush was excitedly telling us who was in Murder, She Wrote, and it's really messy.
Oh, so I'm done now. Okay, we'll move on. It's enough out of me.
Never done.
Right,
I'm sure we'll come back to you. I'm sure we'll come back to you.
It's never, no. You said it right. It's never done. It's never done.
It's never done.
The trial never ends. I'm gonna referee. Brush, do your Murder, She Wrote, and then Patches continue. Go.
Nominate Brush.
Referee.
Nominate Brush.
Dan gets the yellow cards.
Oh, shut up, Patches!
Come on. Murder, She Wrote.
It's William Wyndham. Commodore Decker is a fucking main character in Murder, She Wrote, people. Ooh. A main character. He was in for the whole 12 seasons. He plays Dr. Seth Haslett.
Are you all right, Seth?
He's a god.
Is Matt Decker of the motion pictures?
Oh, didn't know that.
Wait.
I did not know that.
Oh my!
Oh my!
What's interesting is it kind of changes now how if you watch TMP again, it's like, oh, Kirk knows that's his son, and there's a different aspect to that relationship.
I think it's quite interesting the way Kirk comes on in a motion picture and he says, "I'm in command here," and he's like, "You're fucking not. We've been through this. You lot don't command shit round me. This is my shit." And the Enterprise in the motion picture is the same Enterprise as in the series. It's had a refit, but there is no A at this point.
Dan's Googling. Dan's Googling.
No, it's true. It's true. No, you're right.
His ship, and he's like, "No, I'm not having anyone called Decker jam my ship down the throat of a space monster."
Yeah. Do you know it does change that? It changes. I didn't I never picked up from. Well, as anybody before we've now done this, picked up and watched TMP thinking, well, he's got a relationship already with you because he watched your dad die, kind of thing. And he was his friend. He says he was his friend. Spock says, "I'm sorry your friend died." Do you know what I mean? So
I'm
it's
finding
interesting.
a new respect for the motion picture. As I'm watching the old episodes of the original series because of that, like through Shuttlebay 4, like directed us to watch this, watch that. I've said it before.
Shuttlebay 4!
Shuttlebay.
Sorry,
Shuttlebay 4. Once I've watched one, it rolls on, and I kind of watch 2 or 3.
D and Jed haven't gone yet on Doomsday Machine.
Oh, sorry, I was just threatening Steve.
What the hell can I say?
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Already said.
Right, Jed then.
What is it now? We're talking about the motion picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the bits about the getting Decker certified and getting him tested mentally, and he's unfit for the bridge. At the beginning, you could have done that when he was in shock, and he was like, the man's not, he's not with it, Kirk. Stop badgering him with questions, when they get him off the constellation. There's that bit. Is this the first episode where, or is it the only episode where McCoy says, I'm a doctor, not a mechanic?
No, I mean, engineer.
I thought he said mechanic. Mechanic.
He does say mechanic.
He says
mechanic.
Yeah.
He does. I've written it down.
Well, you're wrong.
Mechanic.
Google it.
Right, put it on. Roll the tapes.
I think it might be mechanic. I'll tell you what. I'll put it in. I'll edit it in.
I'm sure he said engineer myself.
He says engineer.
I've got
It says engineer 100%.
Mechanic.
I swear I've written down here I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
Yeah, but you're fucking wrong.
And the other bit was that they like to end it on a smiley, jokey feeling again.
What was the jokey bit at the end of this one?
I don't know. It just had a nice, warm.
Did it? I can't remember.
However, I can't help wondering if there are any more of those weapons wandering around the universe.
Well, I certainly hope not. I found one quite sufficient.
Dee, did you like this episode?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one,
I've
isn't
seen this episode before, yeah, a while back, but I didn't mind rewatching it. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, no, it's been a while.
I'm not really that familiar with any TOS.
Yeah,
I've only seen the ones that we've watched for Shuttlebay 4. To be honest with you, I've never really watched TOS.
I've watched them over and over repeatedly over the years, over the years since I was a kid. But I really struggle to know a whole episode like I do any other series, like TNG Voyager. You know what I mean? I can watch them and not know them.
Yeah, I'm the same.
This is Jed's first episode, weren't it, Jed?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I love that fact as well. That's actually an oh my.
Isn't it? Oh my.
Oh my.
Do you know what else is an
oh my?
Go on then. What else is an oh my? Apparently, Commodore Decker was Decker's father.
No!
Oh
my! Oh my!
Oh my!
No, this is what popped my cherry for Star Trek. I was only a nipper, so I love it. That's why I chose it. I absolutely love this episode.
Yeah.
And I remember it from the original one, and to see it for the first time on Netflix, it was brilliant. And I just had a nostalgia little
moment to yourself.
I had a Star Trek tingle.
Yeah.
I will say one thing though. At the end, when Decker's going into the maw, I pull them faces after I've had a jalfrezi and a full few fucking beers.
Lieutenant Palmer also appears in another episode, which is The Way to Eden, season 3, episode 20.
All right.
The Mankini.
The Way to Eden. Hey, brother.
You're such a Herbert, man.
Herbert.
Oh, mate, that's a brilliant episode. I love that. It's so funny.
It's so funny, yeah.
I need to rewatch it.
You ever hear of a Doomsday Machine? No, I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
So
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic. The Doomsday Machine. Oh, brush.